what the Church of Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV.
Welcome back to SPTV, everybody, for our regular Monday night live stream. Sorry for the little delay in getting started here, but we're still. Wait. Well, okay. We have Serge Del Mar. We have Ian Rafalco. We also have. Oh, she disappeared. The reason we're late getting started is we're trying to let Catherine join as well. Catherine, can you hear us? Oh my God.
Oh my God.
She's back. She's here.
Okay.
Hear you. That's what I get for trying to mic.
Yeah. Hey, that's all right. That's all right. That's how you live and you learn.
Yeah,
and actually,
right?
so tell us your situation. You're on a laptop, but no plug-in mic for tonight?
That's right.
Okay. You know, it sounds fine.
Oh, good.
It sounds fine.
Good.
All right, everyone. Let's see. Frequent viewers of my channel will already know who Serge is. They will already know who Ian is. They will even know who Catherine is. But let's go around. Let's go around the SP circle here and just introduce ourselves. Sir, how about this? We introduce ourselves in terms of our Scientology history. What this is one of the only all second gen panels that we've had. Of course, when Mike and Mark and Claire are all second gen as well. But you know, I don't know how many people actually think of Mike Rinder as being a second gen, but he is. He's born and raised. So, Serge, tell everyone your Scientology history.
I am Serge. I was born in Mexico. I was born in the Sea Org, and my parents were there since I was born, basically. Then they left, and I was made to join the Sea Org at 14 at Flag. I was trained as a class 4 auditor by the time I was 12. I had achieved the state of clear by the age of 14. And I then did almost an 11-year stint in Florida until I turned 21, 22, and then I got the hell out of there.
All right. Awesome. And real quick, I'm going to be doing this regularly throughout the stream tonight, but you can subscribe to Serge at Serge Del Mar. Oh, on YouTube. Subscribe to Serge. I'm going to edit this. Subscribe to Serge on YouTube at Serge Del Mar or at Serge Del Mar. And Serge, you're about to crack 1,000 subs.
Yes. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you so much.
In just less than a week. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Ian Rafalco, your turn, man. What's your history?
Yes. Howdy, y'all. My name's Ian. I was born and raised into Scientology. Didn't really get too involved myself, although I was subject to it my whole life. I didn't really get too involved until I was in my teens, and then I joined staff in Atlanta, and I trained to Class 5. I went clear and at Flag, and I was on staff for like 2.5 years after that. And both my parents are really big donors. Dr. Eric Berg is my dad, and he's donated millions of dollars to Scientology. And I had just about enough of the constant abuse and empty org, and I was never auditing anyone, and there was a lot of back and forth, and my parents were quite vile people, so I got out of there, and I exposed my dad, sort of blew the whistle on his whole thing, and because he's like a mini celebrity on the internet, I popped off, and my whole family cut me out of their lives, and I was like, you know what? People want to hear about Scientology, so that's why I'm here. I'm just going to keep doing it.
All right. And you can subscribe to Ian Rafalco's channel on YouTube at Ian Rafalco with no space.
There's no space. Sorry. If you didn't want me to curse, also, I just kind of came out on your channel.
Did you curse? Did I miss it?
It slipped. I realized right before, but
you can curse.
I was a little too comfortable. It was after the 11 seconds or the 14. What was it? The 15?
No one knows.
7 seconds or something.
No one really knows. And one of the one of the reasons to do a big intro and let everyone know who we are and what our experience is so that people know what to ask in the Q&A portion. These videos, these Monday night live streams, generally speaking, are Q&As. So just before we keep going,
Right.
like Serge, you did you were class 4, you were a class 4 auditor by the time you were how old, you said?
12.
By 12. And how much auditor training did you do, just for those watching who might want to ask various questions?
I did, I mean, a ton. I did the FPRD course. I did
No, but I mean, did you do like grad 5 or like I know you did stuff on the RPF.
class 5, grad 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then you had attested to clear last life clear or present?
No, I did all the
Oh.
grades. I did NED by 12. I did everything. Part of the problem was that knowing I was gay my whole life, I was, well, there goes that possibility of me being clear last lifetime. And I forced myself to do all the auditing because I was, trying to like, figure out the misalignment in the thetan and my thetan in my body. I mean, it was so confusing and horrific because really, when you think about it, it's like such disgusting misinformation. And I'm glad that we're now starting to speak more about like the LGBTQ experience in Scientology, because I mean, of course, Nora has shared some stuff about it, but there's a lot of us that were in that same ship, and we had it really, really bad because, again, L. Ron Hubbard made us public enemy number one. He said that the ones, the gays, were more disgusting than the pedophiles. So that's how our parents viewed us whenever we were showing the valence of being out of valence. That was their favorite kind of like sadistic word. So they'd be helicoptering around you the whole time, surveilling you, watching you, hearing you. What did you play with? I mean, I got like locked up in I remember getting locked up for 4 days because I was caught playing Barbies.
Oh, damn.
So 4 days of
damn.
write your W's, and you like sit there in the room. No one could come in. You were alone. Like you just had a pen and a paper and you could barely read and write. And it was just like so disassociating and so horrible because, again, like your parents, like what you said, Ian, like the parents became vile. They took turns being sadists. They got off on that fake power that they were instilling on the kid. They thought themselves very superior because they were applying a technology. And, again and again and again, we have to wake up to the facts and start really speaking to what is taking place day in and day out, even as we speak, because I feel like we're all here because this stuff is still happening. Like, I wish to God this shit was closed and we would be literally not having to do any more YouTubes ever again and talk about this horrific experiences we all had, because some people think that, the people come up here and it's like, it's fun and it's great, but it's like, it's not fun and it's not great. But somehow we have to change the way things went for us. And we have to be the change we want to see. And we are adults now, and we really understand what the hell these people are doing. So if nobody calls them out, how are they to stop? So
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And we'll get more into all that later on as well. So I wanted to give everyone a sense of how much auditing, how much training, how much time on staff are in the Sea Org. So you're basically
I did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Then I did the RPF. So I did FPRD on all 8 dynamics. So that literally means that probably I think I did over like 1,500 hours of interrogations. In the RPF, you have to do 5 hours a day of redemption is what they were calling it. So we will get more into the specifics of the RPF, but right now, just to give you like the overall view, it was all that auditor training. It was all that sec checking and interrogations and disgusting role plays that were what the sessions were. And then what else did I do? And then so I stayed in the Sea Org until I was 21. And I think that after 21, I feel like my brain matured enough to not be scared, because they put me through hell to not leave the Sea Org. I was washing bathrooms with muriatic acid for 6 months while being interrogated by this man called Alberto Ongagna, who was this horrendous, disgusting Italian pervert that was the security, it was called the security sec checker. And yeah, he was a disgusting man. He would keep us there locked up in this vault. They had a vault where all these interrogations were taking place. But yeah, I finally, after 6 months, I left the Sea Org. I didn't want to blow because our parents were still involved. So I was willing to wash bathrooms with muriatic acid so that at the time, 21, you're just still like, oh, my parents, my family, like that was still like, a coping mechanism in my life. I didn't realize that they were the ones that child trafficked me. That came way later. So at the time, I put myself last, washed all those bathrooms, and then left the Sea Org and ended up in New York. Okay, because the Sea Org didn't allow me to stay in Clearwater. Mind you, I had no education, I had no high school, I had nothing. I had just spent all of my entire formative years in this disgusting hotel. And so they, last minute before I was going to leave the Sea Org, they're like, oh no, you cannot stay in Clearwater, you're going to be out PR. So now you have to go. And I just was so done with all the BS. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll go to New York and I'll figure it out. So I landed in New York coming out of a cult. Literally, I was that poster child of like, this man just came out of a cult. But I figured it out and I had a great time, and New York was awesome. And I started having fun. And again, you're so young, 21, you're still so naive. Like none of the experience that I went through registered in that regard of us, like, I still was so, acquiesce to everything. So nothing raised the red flag. I just thought I had $100,000 freeloader bill from Scientology for having had the gall to leave after enslaving me my entire teenage years. And I paid that freeloader debt. I was made to pay that freeloader debt. I was in lower conditions and I finished my lower conditions. So I sort of climbed back into the system. Then I paid for my OT3. When I was not in the Sea Org anymore, I paid for my OT3. So I started like spending money back into Scientology. And it really wasn't until my first art show and
Serge, let's do the intros for right now, and then we'll get back into other things. Okay, so that's your auditing, training, and experience in the Sea Org. Ian, just give everyone, you might have already said some of it, but your auditor training, your bridge, auditing stuff, and then time on staff and stuff.
Yeah, so I was I trained at Flag. I was on staff in Atlanta as the staff section officer. So I was doing I was handling the staff auditing and courses. Like I was telling them what to do and when to do it. And I didn't really I didn't have a lot of training then, but I was that for 7 months. I think I was on staff a total of like 4 years. But for most of that I was training. They wanted me to, I had done some child auditing when I was a kid. And none of it ever made any sense to me. It was just a man asking me what kind of things I was attracted to and what kind of inappropriate internet content that I viewed, and describe it. And, any small problems like a growing, young person gets into, these are the kind of things that I was very turned off from that. But by pressure with my parents, I started doing my grades in different various places. I was in Clearwater. I did it at Bel Air Mission. I did a couple. I did my lower grades at Bel Air up through from like I did my M1, and then I got on my grades to grade 3. And then I went to Atlanta and did the rest of my grades up through my NED drug rundown. And I finished that. And I still wasn't clear. I was kind of supposed to go clear then. And then they were going to send me to become the clear certainty rundown auditor. So I was sent to Flag so they'll just like, oh, when you're there, you'll they'll let you go clear, and then they'll do that whole thing, and then you'll come back and it'll be great. And I was like, oh, sick. It'll be 4 months tops. I was there for 11 months, 7 days a week. I got 2 days off maybe through the whole situation. I got really good at, I did all my grades pretty quickly. And I was in ethics for like 3 months for some other stuff, which is another story altogether. And I got really good at sec checking. And so I was like the internship sec checker for superpower auditors, for new OOTs, the outer org trainees that would come while I was there. I was like used endlessly as this like training dummy where I was constantly drilling people and like doing as Serge said, the like the role play, basically the fake sessions. I was really good at that. Then when I left back to my org, there was like nothing going on there, got really depressed. I went back to do superpower. I went back to Flag to do superpower, and I felt really great. And I was like, I realized I want to be an artist. I don't want to be on staff for the rest of my life. And I said this out loud, and I didn't say I was going to leave, but they circled that in red, and they sent that up the line. And I was basically made to, I was, I don't know the right word for it, held at Flag for 5 months, where I wasn't allowed to leave. I wasn't allowed to do basically anything except show up, do amends, which is just physical labor. That basically I was told like I was some sort of delinquent who was in doubt about everything. I wasn't allowed to leave for 5 months. I had a friend even die, and I wasn't allowed to go to his funeral. And after the 5 months, I was like, I was sec checked every day or every other day. So as like maintenance. So I could say I probably have somewhere around like, say like through my life, I have definitely over like 2,000 hours of auditing, but I can't say really how much that equated to success. I ended up leaving. I left staff. I left my the whole place. I went back to live with my parents, and that was just a nightmare. But yeah, I've been through it.
Okay, now
that's more or less the gist of
the auditing that you've done that most people have not done is superpower and the L rundowns. So people might have questions for you in the Q&A about that.
I never did the L's. I've seen the L's. I've seen the sheets, but I haven't.
Who is it that did the L's? I could have sworn you. Damn it! I thought you did the L's. Okay, so you did superpower.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there you go. And that's something people are fascinated with because they don't know what the hell it means.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay, good. So, and what class auditor training did you finish up to?
5. So
Okay,
I could clear people basically.
Class 5, and you had attested to clear and done superpower, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, that brings us to Catherine Olson in the bottom left-hand corner. How are you?
I'm good now that I'm on the stream.
Good. How are you? How were you doing before you got on the stream?
I was doing great.
Okay.
No, I'm doing really good. So my story goes, I joined staff in Portland, Oregon in 1992 with my mom and my sister. And I was recruited for the Sea Org in 1993 by a project that was there. And I arrived in 1994, and then I was on various posts in what's called upper middle management. It's not in management. It's not continental. It's like in the middle in LA, Hollywood Guarantee Building. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. And I was there on various posts and projects and all over the place until 2019. And then I got sent out to Columbus because about 100 Sea Org members got sent there because they had to open the org, and all the renovations were done, but there was no staff. So somebody said, we're sending the Sea Org. So I got sent out there. And then the org opened and we were all merrily doing our thing. And then COVID hit, which was great for me because the org was closed and we were all at the apartments and I was in charge of promotion. And so I decided I was going to make a Facebook account, which was illegal in the Sea Org. And because I wanted to see other orgs' Facebook accounts. So I made this illegal account, and then I decided I was going to contact some friends of mine. And I found a few friends, and I found a very good friend who basically helped me for the next year because I was agonizing over whether or not to leave and what to do and how to leave and should I say I want to go and do the whole, sec check interrogation. I would have gotten sent back to LA and they would have convinced me for like months to try to stay. And so I didn't want to go that route. And I finally decided with the help of a very important person that I was going to go. And I got in contact with the Aftermath Foundation, with Aaron Smith-Levin, and with Claire and Mark Headley, who are all very good friends of mine now. And I left and I didn't go through any of the interrogations, any of that BS, trying to make me stay. I just was like, no, I'm done. I walked out and no one's tried to contact me since.
So
and
how many years were you in the Sea Org for?
26.
And how old were you when you left?
I was, how old was I? I hate this question. Trick question.
I mean, somewhere near 40, right?
44.
44.
Yeah.
Without a driver's license, right?
That's right. I never learned how to drive.
Hey, I didn't either.
But you
Claire
know how to
taught me, actually.
I've always been better at walking. I got long legs. So
Claire's a very good teacher. She taught me how to drive.
And did you just say you currently don't know how to drive?
No,
I know how to drive, but legally they won't let me. I can whip it. Trust me. I just don't have the card that allows me to.
You don't have a driver's license?
No, not at all.
Oh boy, you really did grow up in a cult.
Yeah. Shocker.
Okay, so this is interesting.
Actually, 27 years. I'm sorry. I can't count. I sort of grew up in a cult.
That's okay. Okay, so after all those years, 27 years in the Sea Org, how much auditor training did you do? How high did you get on the bridge?
I was in the middle of grade 2 when I left, which was great.
Sweet irony.
I was actually sort of having fun. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to bring up any of this stuff that I'm looking at, any of this stuff that I'm reading, any of these conversations I'm having, trying to figure out what I'm doing, because to me, it's not an overt.
And Catherine, were you doing the grade part or the sec check part? Did you ever get to the sec check Joburg part or no?
No, I didn't get there. I probably would have if I would have said anything as to what I was really thinking. But I was like, I'm not going there. I'm like, this is going to be my decision. It's ultimately my decision. No one's going to. So
how long were you being audited before you left? Like, did you start having thoughts during grade 2? Like,
no. I was kind of like, I was on and off, like, should I go? Should I stay for like a year? Like, I was really agonizing over it for like a year. And then in the middle of all that, it was like, oh, you're going to go in session. And I was like, cool. Okay. Cause I didn't want to say, no, I don't want to. And then I've been like, why don't I want to go in session? So I'm like, okay, fine. I'll just do it. And I'm just not going to take up any of this stuff.
I have a question for y'all, if you don't mind. This is something that came up when Serge was talking, but I just thought I'd because there was this very specific moment for me when I was deciding to, because first I was like, I'm going to take a break from Scientology, which was like insane in my mind, but I felt justified because of all the shit that had happened. And then there was a moment where I had a critical thought, and I was like, I'm never going to go in session. That's like, this is my first private thought I feel like I've ever had in my entire life. And I want to keep it that way. Y'all, if you've had that, do you remember the moment? And I was wondering if you wanted to talk about that.
I remember that specifically because it was when I started watching things online, because I was very trusted to be out and around and about, because I was in charge of promotion. So I used to be out of the org all the time and going around town and doing all this stuff. And I used to be at the university at OSU a lot. in Ohio, right? And they had Wi-Fi, and I had an iPod, and so I would just watch stuff, and I would talk to my friend, and text and whatever, and find whatever I could to figure out what I was going to do. And I saw this video of Aaron's actually called Scientology and the Matrix, and I watched it, and it was great. And I was like, I'm not going to. Yeah, no one's ever going. No one in Scientology, as long as I'm here and in this org, is ever going to know that I saw this, because it would just be like the end. Yeah, it would just be the end. Like it'd be like, nope, back to LA, on the decks, heavy manual labor, interrogations, all this stuff. And I had already gone through quite a bit, because my mom and my sister left staff, and they left Scientology very publicly in 2007. And they tried to get me to go as well, and it didn't work out. And so that was already known about as a thing. And yeah, it would have. I know it would have not been good if I would have gone that route.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I really kind of checked out after 21. Like I said, I was more interested, kind of like what you said, Ian, like in the outside world. There was like an artistic drive that was inside me, and I always felt that that was me. And I feel like that really kind of helped me not get stuck in that rhetoric, like, and even being LGBTQ was my saving grace. Right. Because the thing is, L. Ron Hubbard never really stuck to me, because I always saw myself as other than everyone else, because I was like, I can't be part of that, because even though I was trying so hard, right, finishing the levels, doing all the things so that I could be perceived and approved, right, because I was great at that. I was, like what you said, Ian, I became an excellent sec checker. Like you couldn't, but people feared when they got sent to me. They were like, oh, you're going to be sent to Surge. And
sure.
And it was, it's like we took that job so serious. We had a gun to our head, because again, taking even those sec checking PCs, and even though you're the sec checker, like everything is done with such sadism that is literally
like humanity. Like you're hunting for these incidents. You don't believe a single word that comes out of this person's mouth. They are like an object for you to extract. Like
100%. And using that, that stupid e-meter, that it's an instrument of torture. It's what I've actually fully understood. It's a completely sadistic instrument of torture. The fact that someone is like strapped to those cans and cannot move. And then the fact that and I explained this 2 lives ago, I said, there's a dom and a sub, but in this horrific role play, the sub has no safe word whatsoever.
No, yeah.
Like he has to take it. And in fact, if the person on the cans is complaining, not liking it, or having any critical thoughts, to Catherine's point, they double down, they triple down. And as sec checkers, like that was the job.
Yeah.
The job was to double down, to triple down, to tear him apart, and then to sort of put him back together to that sort of stupid floating needle state where they were so disassociated by the time you were done with them that, people were like, oh my God, L. Ron Hubbard is amazing. He's a genius. This technology is so great. I feel so much better. There was no way to ever leave a room in those hotels unless you were that disassociated. And then once you left that hotel room, you had to go to another hotel room to then get checked. They called that the examiner. And then, so guess what? The people that didn't really get disassociated at the first hotel room were checked over here. And God forbid you didn't float your needle in that second hotel, because guess what you just went through those 4 hours, now we got to check what's going on. We're going to have to pour through all your folders. We're going to have to look at the videos to see what you were talking about. Your case supervisor is going to start writing more disgusting questions based on what you just said, to see what kind of withholds could have been missed in that thing that didn't make you have a floating needle.
And you're on a time limit.
Yeah.
And you're at 20, and you have 24 hours to do
24
that.
hours.
And even the subject knows that they will lose all the statistics of the entire organization if they cannot get themselves to float within those 24 hours. So again, it's like the exercise of complete and utter psychosis and sadist environment, and the fact that they utilize somebody like you, me, Aaron. I mean, Catherine, thank God you didn't do the auditor training, because
Yeah, no,
you wouldn't wish this on your worst
I
enemy.
only started on like the
Yeah.
SRD. I started on like the survival rundown, and that was as far as I got. I spent most of my Sea Org training or auditing time or whatever because I was in management, and management is always in trouble and always sucks, and we're always doing something wrong, and so they're constantly having you do study orders and restudy this and word clear that, and it's just insane.
And
Like,
Catherine, I really want to point out something that I noticed when you talked about like your driver's license, and I'm glad that you brought up all the study orders and things like that, right? Because something came up for me. I was like, stunted growth, right? Like the fact that Scientology pretends that anyone in its grips, it's growing through their formative years, is a joke and a half.
Yeah.
And the fact that the courts of the United States are playing dumb with us and playing games where it's like, well, you know, like Valerie, for example, perfect example. She left so late, and they're like, well, you know, you're not really trafficked and you have to go to arbitration because you did sign this as an adult. And it's like, how dare you tell us that she was an adult where all she did was, like what you just said, Catherine, do a study order, do an ethics program. Like, what chance did that woman have to understand what the hell was going on? I can tell you none, right? But it's like the courts just pretend that, oh yeah, they grew. They're blaming us for what happened to us.
what did you do for regular schooling, Serge? Did you do anything?
So I got up to 7th grade in Mexico before I had, you know, the horrible situation where my parents were going to do the OT level. So they're like, let's go to Florida, Disneyland. Like, that's what, you know, as a 12-year-old, like I'm thinking, oh, that's just a great opportunity. How lucky am I to go from this to over there? But, you know, as soon as I got to Flag, they put me to do courses at the age of 11 or, you know, or 10 or whatever. And that's all I did. You know, I did the courses, and they would never let me go back to school. And I was completely mortified because I was like, that's horrible. Like, I was so embarrassed that I wasn't even going to finish high school, you know, but they then said, no, you have to do the auditor training. And in fact, my parents then went ahead and paid $40,000 for me to become a class 4 auditor. So Scientology didn't do this to me. My parents put the $40,000 there so that I would become an auditor. And, you know, we touched upon this too, Aaron, like, where is the parents' justification saying that they didn't know, or that they didn't know what the sessions were about? I mean, even in your case, Ian, like, your parents so trained, they get the sessions themselves. They know what is asked. They know the type of boundaries are crossed.
They were allowed to look. They were
got out.
Yeah, they were allowed to look at the session KRs when I was a child. So, you know, when you're doing the sec checks, the interrogation for ethics purposes, they write out after every single solitary overt or transgression that you did, and then they send it to your file. My parents, I'm sure, were allowed to know exactly what happened. I mean, they did it with my sister. My sister was sent to, because I have a brother and a sister who are both still in. My sister, who I do eventually hope she gets out, because she had a really rough time of it. And she's very deeply manipulated into like almost like a psychotic level. They expressly sent her to St. Hill to like get a repair because she wasn't flag qualified for flag. And they were like, I want to know what's happening in your sessions so that I know that you're getting better. Neither of my parents were trained. So this is just narcissistic, like people who feel like elitist enough to say that they can tell when anybody else, like, because they're on OT8, so they know how to tell what is and what isn't. right, but it was just sick. And
Well, the fact that you just
yeah.
said, Ian, like you said, like, and just so everyone is clear about this, an American minor girl, she was probably a minor, right? Was
Yeah.
sent over to England, to another country away from America, because she so-called doesn't qualify for flag. Like, why doesn't she qualify for flag? Because Scientology runs crisis management 24/7
Yeah.
But what
on
was the reason
every
she didn't
person
qualify
that's
for
coming
flag?
through the org.
But what was the reason?
First dynamic thoughts. So,
Right.
which is wanting to take
Unallowed.
your own life. She was not a minor when she was sent to. She's been getting the same auditing. I mean, she's never really progressed beyond a certain point for these reasons. She's very unstable. But like, instead of any kind of treatment, I mean, my parents. I remember looking like overhearing events that my mom would hold in the living room where people were like, "We're on a prison planet," and the like literally space opera, like the you know, people drilled into our heads and then they implanted these things. So as a kid, I'm like, oh, this is some heavy stuff. But you don't really realize that these people are just coping.
By the way, I want to
Really
jump in and say this whole thing of at Flag is the giant Scientology organization in Clearwater. They have implemented a rule where if you have had thoughts of not wanting to be alive anymore, and you admit that you have ever had thoughts like this, you're not allowed to be at Flag. Now, the irony here is thick because Scientology claims it has the technology to fix anything that could ever be wrong with you. And yet, the reason they don't want someone who's had those thoughts to be a Flag is they're like, hey, if you're going to off yourself, do it somewhere else. Don't do it here.
No,
you would think that they would be like, Flag is where we deliver the best auditing you can get anywhere in the world. If you've had such thoughts, you should come to Flag so we can fix you. Instead, they're like, do it over there, buddy. We don't want the headache.
I tried to leave.
They sec check. They interrogate people who have thoughts like that.
Yeah, I tried to leave for 5 months and they wouldn't let me. But the second I was like, I'm sitting in this hotel room and I'm picturing different ways that I, as this useless person who will never amount to the ethical standard that this group demands of me, why am I even here? And I'm having these thoughts and they're like, oh, I see. And I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, this isn't new. I've talked about this in the past. And they're like, oh yeah, well, we just thought you were like being dramatic before. I'm going to take this information and we're going to do something about it. 2 hours later, I was told I had to leave the property. Yeah. Like after 5 months of all of this stuff in this hotel room, I had to like gather it all up and put it in boxes. Thank God I had a friend.
Go ahead, Catherine, and then I want to.
At one point, at middle management, ILO is what it's called, International Liaison Office. There was this trend of people saying that they were having those thoughts so that they'd get routed out of the Sea Org like really fast, and a lot of people started doing this. And then somebody in RTC was like, no, if people are doing this, tell them they're going to get declared. They're going to get declared.
Because people were lying because they knew it was a fast way out of the Sea Org.
That's right. And it was really fast. And it kept happening. I don't even remember how I found that out, but.
And I would say that, the suicidal thoughts come to everyone pretty much. I mean, after that much abuse 24/7, that gaslighting 24/7, and always when you're having these thoughts, you think, oh, this must be me. Something's wrong with me. I'm the one that's thinking like this. Everyone else is loving it, right? Because that's what everyone else is purporting to be like.
Yeah, because you're not allowed to talk to anyone else about what you're thinking.
And if you're having a bad time, you're not supposed to dramatize your case. Talk about like the bad thoughts. You're only supposed to project the good thoughts. If you spread too much bad, it's like you're creating an interbulation or a literal negative like wave that will physically
being a
change.
problem is what they would call you. You're being a problem. Start being the solution and stop being a problem. I mean, that just like that. It's like, oh, I'm having a hard time. Stop being a problem. It's like, do you think I have to deal with that? I'm your senior. I'm not going to be dealing with that. You're putting case on post. You're a Sea Org member. Get your ethics in. Why are you dramatizing? Like, you're going to go to HCO then. I mean, again, going back to the narcissistic, dominatrix, horrific, sadistic, deranged power trips from these people wearing military uniforms. Repeat, military uniforms yelling and screaming at kids. Why are you dramatizing when the kids are suicidal? I mean, I used to go to the Fort Harrison, you guys, to the last balcony, and I contemplated throwing myself out of there. And that's how I would almost quell. It would give me peace to know that I could end it. Like somehow something always came to me and it rescued me at that last minute. But this was how I crisis managed for so long. Like even after I left Scientology, like the awakening is a rude awakening. So all of this starts coming up for you and you start becoming extremely suicidal. And you know, that's the struggle is real. Like because the abuse was real AF. So
let me ask you guys for your thoughts on this real quick, because you know there's a lot of things, pretty simple concepts that if people who are in Scientology truly had freedom of thought, it would occur to them that these things don't make any goddamn sense. And the fact that Flag won't allow anyone on the base who has even expressed any sort of suicidal ideation is one of these things that you're like, that means they don't even believe their tech works. Like if someone looked at it just dispassionately, they would go, that means they don't think their tech works, right? What is your guy, being the devil's advocate, thinking the way a Scientologist might think, how do they explain away, how do they justify having to protect Flag from Scientologists who have had thoughts like that?
I think they justify it by saying that people who say that or dramatize that are being suppressive. And that kind of explains away. It's like, oh, they're an SP. Oh, obviously, and you don't have SPs on the lines at Flag, and get rid of them. Like they're being suppressive. They're trying to upset or end Scientology or attack Scientology in some way, or by saying these things. That's what I think. It's the same thing with like labeling someone PTS.
Yeah, like I like to think of it like there's this commonality between all Scientologists where we all kind of, and I used to think it was just some, but it is all, because the tech, like none of the more explosive examples of the tech have ever actually been like proven. Like when you're always like, oh, I can't wait until I see this incredible thing on this level that proves without a shadow of a doubt that I'm in the right place, and like all my doubts will go away. No one's really had that, but we're all kind of like sharing this confirmation bias of the concepts. So like no one's ever seen someone like climb out of that, I think, in a real way that's been like provable. So I think it's just like belief I think it's just blind belief to a degree. Like you mire yourself down in all like the technical aspects that you don't really realize that you do have faith. It is a faith, but even though in Scientology it's not faith because there's no God and you don't actually believe in God, but like you do have faith in this guy, like he is a God or like he is a prophet, and his tech is gonna fix them. And legally in the WOG world, we can't have you doing this here because it's going to look bad on the news. So,
I love this line of discussion, by the way, especially since we were all born and raised in it. Just real quick, the idea, like, did each of you think of Scientology as a belief system or a religion or a faith in any way, shape, or form growing up?
Before you go to that question, Aaron, let me just answer for me what,
go ahead.
what I think about this whole, like, I'll tell you what it means because I saw it firsthand. And it all happens in Scientology's case supervisors officers. Okay. So
what are we talking about right now? Just frame it real quick.
People, feeling this way, and why doesn't Flag, do anything with them and whatnot. I spend so much time inside ivory towers listening to the case supervisors, how they spoke about the people that are bringing up these thoughts in their sessions. Right. And again, going back to L. Ron Hubbard's rhetoric makes people become psychopaths. So these CSs are there reading these worksheets and just being like, oh, look, this degraded person. Like there's this whole, like, they're degraded. They're just a nut. Like they quick remember L. Ron Hubbard said, for the able make him more able. The minute you become a problem for Scientology, you're no longer in that able category, so they want to get rid of you and fast. And all of this is contingent on their crisis management, which they hold 24/7. This is what the CSs are doing day in and day out, looking for liabilities. And since they're surveilling every single one of their end users, they have a front row seat to know who's about to pop, who's about to crack, who can no longer stay here. And there's meetings. I mean, I think Mark Headley was talking about Perimeter Council. Perimeter Council is a meeting where Scientology executives get together every week to review. Now, this is just mostly for like, who's a security flap, they call it. Who's about to be a flap? Who could break? Who could crack?
BIs, bad indicators.
So,
I mean, even just the tone level analysis, like the last line of the auditor's code, you know, like not permitting someone who you believe is insane to the ranks of parishioners. Insanity is so vague. Like you can just say, oh, look how downtoned this person is. You can find a reference that says they're insane. Get them out of
one
there.
day you're in and the next day you're out, and you're always going to be out when you're not being of use to them. And if you're not just saying that they're the greatest thing alive, even though they're abusing you 24/7. And that's why we have to advocate for, you know, I feel for all the second gens that were, you know, I'm sure that you feel the same, Catherine and Ian and Aaron, of kids that were there with us that are our age today. I mean, like, I feel for you, Catherine, right? It's like you didn't know. And how much strength, internal strength, did you have to muster to leave, right? Like, it's unthinkable. And it's like, you know, and it took so much bravery, but it's like the kids that are still stuck. I mean, I have my friend Luke Burns, my friend Chris Zea. These kids were trained as kids to become auditors. God knows what the hell they're doing with them right now. And it's like, what chance do they have to combat this level of surveillance into their lives? Because that's what auditing is, surveillance into all of their end users. And all of that data that is being mined is being used against them. Like when you're an attorney, when you're a doctor, you have to have an ethics code where you getting all this information cannot do harm to that person. In Scientology is the reverse. In Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard thought it was a great idea to data mine all the information out of the person and use it all against that person to control them. And yes, when they get that one unalive themselves, oh yeah, they're trash now. Oh yeah, leave them. Oh yes, declare them. They have all manner of ways they can dispose of you as roadkill, because that's what everybody ends up after 24/7, 365 gaslighting every day. They all end up as roadkill. But let's not, you know, they have no benefit of the doubt. The crisis management is real. They all know about it. They're all in on it. They all think it's great. They all think it's wonderful. They all have given themselves this level of power and just complete delusion of what the hell they're doing, because they got a 2-week course from L. Ron Hubbard that taught them all of this. That's how long it takes to train a case supervisor, you guys. Just so you know, in 2 weeks at a hotel, you could be pouring through copious notes of detailed message of somebody wanting to literally be on the desperation of like, maybe I shouldn't be here anymore. But don't worry, this man that just finished a 2-week course is going to take care of it. And that's where
it was so weird.
It's not even 2 weeks. I high crimed the policy. I was doing CSing when I was on the internship. Granted, it was interns.
They always keep undercutting it. They always keep undercutting
exactly. 2 weeks is too long.
There was a kid in the ILO early on when I was there. He was like 10 or 11 years old, and he was doing sec checks and ethics interviews and all this stuff on people. And he gave me an ethics interview one time. I was scared of him. He was intimidating. I was like, the kid is like,
well, think about it, Catherine. If we were not intimidating, we were flunked. It was your fault. And remember, these interrogations were being video recorded. People were watching us and critiquing us. That's what they call, let me give you a critique. Oh, yeah, you sound too namby-pamby. Oh, yeah, you sound too thitty-weedy. Oh, yeah, get your confrontive level up. What the hell's wrong with you? Like, why are you being so namby-pamby? You're letting her get away with all of this. And it's like, if they weren't being mean in session, they were being corrected. So it's like, the incentives are so screwed up and so, again, sadistic and disgusting, and there's no excuse for it, because again, like these sessions are lauded as the way they do therapy. And that's why I told Aaron, like therapy is not tearing you down. Like, you know, I know that Ian, you just went to therapy recently and I've been to therapy and it's like, look, therapy
Jesus
is
Christ, are you telling his
diametrically
business?
opposed.
No, I'm just kidding.
He's not wrong. I mean,
I talked to a great therapist
the-
when I first came out.
yeah, there's a lot of
kidding.
replacing negative things with something good, and
Yeah.
Scientology does not do that second thing. They take and they take and they take, and as long as you're in that dissociative, to get a floating needle, as long as you can clear that thing, you're off. They just send you away. They'll count it as a win, but it does a lot of damage.
I'm curious. I have a technical question. Did you guys ever do ethics interviews FPRD style? Ethics interviews?
I got FPRD. I did not give FPRD.
But not like,
that is
but I'm just talking
that's
about
all-
like an ethics interview, not even a session.
No, I mean, Catherine, that was all the rage. I mean, Marty
Yeah.
Rathman
Yeah.
was teaching all the kids how to do FPRD ethics
in
interviews
an
on
ethics
adults.
interview.
What's the point of doing an
really-
ethics
it's
interview
really
FPRD
messed up.
style?
It's
Catherine,
really
because
messed
you're
up.
not Catherine, because you're not on a mic, your MacBook is going to do a thing where if it hears noise coming out, it will not let your mic and your speaker work at the same time, just so you know.
It's like a priority. So you
Yeah, that's one of the
Yeah.
problems with not using, and I know you would try to use a mic tonight, but I'm just letting you know, sometimes if you try to talk, we're not going to be able to hear you because your computer's only going to let you go one direction at a time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's,
And then it creates a lag and it creates all sorts of weirdness. I'm just letting you know.
okay.
That's crazy.
What the hell were we
Aaron-
talking about? What is the point of doing an ethics interview FPRD style? What does that even?
I don't
because
know.
you're already have to write the reports. It's already going to HCO.
This was a big idea from Marty Rathbun and Sue Gentry and Anne Rathbun. Again, they were the most sadistic people at the top. They always were thinking of ways to be more sadist, to have more control, to be more domineering. So this whole evil purpose stuff is like they were like very interested. It's like, oh, they're crashing their stats. They got to have evil purposes. So do the ethics interview. And while you're in there, find their evil purpose, right? Because that was the way they found the why to why the stats were crashing. So it was, again, it's like all of that shit is based in L. Ron Hubbard, and these people who pretend to have some big executive rank to know anything. But you know what? The executives of Scientology didn't have any executive ranks. They were pre-qualified to make sure they were going to meet a certain level of sadistic, crazy person before they could clear to be the post. You didn't just end up an RTC rep. You had to prove to them that you were going to be at that level. So all of these ethics handlings and all of these evil purpose things, like, you know, anyone could just come up with like, oh, here's a policy that says. So it's like 1 week it was one policy, the next week was another policy. So there's no rhyme or reason to the stupidity.
All right, let's start tackling some questions, and we'll have some anecdotes that come up in the process. Serge, you might have some more experience with this than I do for sure. Ian, I wonder if you do as well. Christine asks, do the celebrity second gens get the same auditing as public, and who audits the celebrities? Well, the answer to the first part is definitely yes, but how do they choose who audits the celebrities?
So, I mean, in my experience, I saw, for example, like Riley Keough, Ben Keough, talk about somebody that is no longer with us, that was audited as a kid, you know, and they always had like special auditors, like, and they had to make sure that they kind of really got along with them. Because again, you have to realize Scientology is manipulating all the celebrities kind of to keep them happy. So they
But
want.
how do they decide who gets to audit the celebrities?
Well, just well, they would pick like the prettiest girl, for
Attractive.
example.
Yeah,
like
yeah. I was
Sophie
gonna say.
Emile, for example. Sophie Emile, I remember, was one of the girls that would get chosen to do celebrity cycles. That's what they called it. And they could be doing another post, but if this person showed up, like they would be grabbed, and it's like, now you're with this person full time. Like they were there, like if they were there 3 months, they were being audited 3 months. So
in your guys' opinion, though, is there any qualifications other than being hot and not having some twisted ethics history that qualifies you to be a celebrity, an auditor of a celebrity?
Well, you know, like, could you do how well, I mean, you know this, Ian, everybody knew who the good auditors were and who the bad auditors were. So
I was gonna say, I don't know. I don't know if you've seen the new flag, if you've been in there, if you've worked in there, like in the HGC, which is where you go to meet the person who's like, you're like, I'm ready to audit. And they're like, I'll go get your auditor. There's like 14 or something. Behind that door is this massive room where they do folder study, and they have cram offs, like waiting, cramming officers who do the correction, like, and on the second and above that floor, there's one big section for the public and for trainees, and then a private key carded section, maglocked, for celebrities. So there are nicer auditing rooms, but like if anything happens, they're watching the session as it's going, writing your corrections. So it's easier, especially, they find the cream of the crop, the people who are, better at kind of handling in like a smooth, easy way. They got to be hot. They got to be like very agreeable and very responsive. But the second they come down, they have the folder and they're like saying, okay, well, go eat something. I'll do this. They're rushed in that back room, slap it down. They already have a pink slip. They're going to go train, drill. They have no time to like eat, rest, whatever. And the celebrity goes and does what, but because it's a celebrity, that auditor has no time.
So would you guys agree with me, like, because people are going to wonder, well, what does it mean to be a good auditor? What does it mean to be a bad auditor?
Sure, yeah.
And, sure, there's going to be technical descriptions of that. But at the end of the day, these auditors who are known just to be really good auditors are auditors who just could never, they always managed to make their sessions end well. Their PCs just weren't upset. Their PCs just loved them. Right. Like there was really, I don't even know how they did it. Honestly, it was just, they always, and they never got upset. They had no tempers.
Right.
They have no they have no triggers. They have no tempers. They're always sort of mildly, calmly happy. One might even say serene. And their PCs just loved them. It didn't even matter if they were technically good auditors or not. Their PCs just enjoyed being audited by them. I mean, is there any other way you would define what it means to be a good auditor, to qualify to audit a celebrity?
I mean, it's all the things you said.
Yeah. I mean, I could think of like when I was like there's a certain prediction of effort. Like, if you've read, you kind of read the same kind of cases over and over sometimes. And there's like a level of persistence. Like this isn't like as much as you're supposed to have like a two-way communication, you're supposed to be friendly with the person. Like you kind of shut off the whole conversational aspect, and you got to kind of be like, this person is a product for me. This person has X, Y, and Z. I'm going to go through everything I'm supposed to get. I have to be perfect. I have to sit perfectly. I have to do all the things. If you drill enough, some people get it, some people don't. Some people drill it for like 1,000,000 hours and they get nowhere and they keep making mistakes. Some people just luck out, and other people, I guess, there's a level of dissociation that comes with it, because I've been in sessions that lasted like 7 hours, 7.5 hours. And I didn't twitch or move a single time. And I can't really account for why, as opposed to I was trained to do that and nothing else by thread of like,
right.
You also think that you're doing something good. You think that you're helping them, but I couldn't say what makes them good.
Yeah. Yeah.
What makes them, I know what makes them bad, but
right. And bad is their PCs complain about them. They get a lot of red tags, all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And remember, Aaron, this is, and to your point, Ian, that, some people are good or bad. It's like, were you a good actor, or were you not a bad actor, or were you a bad actor? TRs were natural, relaxed, and friendly. That's how you were supposed to sound. Not everyone can sound natural, relaxed, and friendly. These interrogations are intense AF. They delve into, you had to be willing to break people's privacy. You could not be scared. You could not be afraid. Like, yes, like Ian was said, you have to be agreeable and all of that. But you also have to ask them like, oh, are you masturbating? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And say it in a very nice, calm way. So make it sound very therapeutic. We really care about you. We want to know this information so that this is all for your own good. And it's all being lauded as this is all being done for your own good. But going back to the principles of the whole domination and submission during that time period are so off and are so off-putting that there is just no right way to audit anybody, because it's just all disgusting and crossing all boundaries.
All right, this one's for you, Serge.
Is a good way to
Colonel
describe
Brock asks, for Serge, were you gay as an auditor? If so, how did you not get kicked out?
No, I mean, no one in Scientology can be gay whatsoever. If you're gay, they have a million labels for you that you have to go fix that out of you. So anyone that's even thinking that they're gay, they have to be handling their ethics. They have to be getting their valences figured out. Like, so it's always that way. So there is no such thing as a gay auditor in Scientology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You asked a question, Aaron, about faith earlier, and I realized we tangented off of that. We broke away. It was like, what was you asked if how we felt?
Did you think of Scientology as being a belief system,
right,
or faith? Did you even think that it required belief at all?
Yeah,
No.
I thought it was like a mystery. I thought it was like I'm allowed to have faith because I'm seeing all these people who are winning, and if I just believe, I mean, I guess. Yeah, I mean, just based for me personally, it was like I was always pushed down, and all these other people were always raised up. So I mean, I also didn't know at the time that I was on the spectrum for autism, so I was treated as other, maybe not as other as Serge, but I definitely, you know, felt like if I just treated it like, you know, when I die, I'm going to like raise out of my body and walk on over to the next baby who's like, you know, you live in it and you do have faith, but I never in my entire Scientology existence saw any of the things that I was promised actually come true or happen or like in reality.
Well,
Catherine, what did you think about whether Scientology was a belief system?
I didn't really think of it as a belief system, but I definitely thought of it as working 100% of the time if applied exactly. That was a big thing. If you apply it exactly, then it works. If it's quote not working, then you're doing it wrong.
This is one of those other very, very simple concepts that if Scientologists weren't in this cult way of thinking, they would go, wait a second, that's unfalsifiable. That means this whole thing is bullshit. First of all, it can work if you apply it non-standardly. You can get away with it. But if it didn't work, it's because you did something wrong, no matter how minor. And you're like, wait a second, what is that? That means if something goes good, it's always because of Scientology. But if something goes bad, it's always because of you. Like I said,
something you did wrong.
It's unfalsifiable. It creates a situation where Scientology can never be wrong. You can never even test it, right? It's ridiculous. Anyway.
So
anyway,
well, but you have a case with them, right? So it's sort of like going back to this. They're faking being lawyers. You think they are having your case, like you're building this whole case the whole time. Every time you go in session, you're handling your case, you're adding to your case, you're progressing on a case. And that's what's so egregious and disgusting about the relationship, in my opinion, because I felt like there was no faith to be had to being abused 24/7 without boundaries. And all of that abuse was just horrendous. And I might have had some trauma bonds that developed as a result of the abuse. But, you know, in hindsight 2020, it was all a waste of our time and a complete violation of our innocence as children. Like, this is just unacceptable.
Yeah.
All
right, let's take a look at this one. Andy Fabulous LRH says there is only one kind of clear. Do you four think you're leaving Scientology is your point of being or obtaining clear in your life, and how did it feel? What does that mean?
A bit of a loaded one. I feel like, first of all, LRH said a lot of dumb things that contradicted himself. He said a lot of things that made no sense. I feel like going clear and then because they don't tell you this, when you go clear, you are now in a worse situation than you were before in the Scientology world. You are now
At risk, they tell you.
at risk to go effect of all the bad things you've heard about up till now. And then, you know, if you don't immediately go up to OT, you're a problem. So once I
and they don't tell you what the risk is, because you're not allowed to know what's on the OT level. So it's like, now that you've attained the state of clear, you are at risk of going the effect of your OT case. And you're like, wait a second, I thought this was supposed to put me in a better state. Now I'm like, go ahead.
When I found out what the clear cognition was, actually it was from one of Aaron's videos. I found out what the clear cognition was. I was like, that's it? That's what it is?
But
and
they don't let you say it too quick.
Yeah. And I've studied like thousands of lectures because I did almost the entire chronological study. And I was always like fascinated with like the OT levels and clear and all this, and trying to find out more, trying to find out as much as I could and put it all together. And then I find that out and I'm like, that is what it is. Okay.
He says it on the basics at one point. I don't know if it's in the PDCs or not, but I remember because I went clear. I did an int rundown and did a 3-month sec check, and found out that after I tested a 3-month sec check, that I had gone clear on the int rundown, and they just didn't let me attest until I finished
that was another thing David Miscavige canceled, was people attesting to clear from the int rundown, because it was happening a lot. I remember that happening a lot at one point. Like
my dad, Dr. Bird, went clear on the int rundown, so I guess maybe we'll have to take a look at that.
But hold on, doing Ned on the int rundown?
No. No, this is from.
Well, one of you said yes, one of you said no. You can't go. So doing Ned on the int rundown?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah,
we have 2 yeses and we have 1 no.
No, you can do Ned, or you can do the end of endless int repair rundown, and that's that's not Ned. The int rundown is Ned.
Yeah. So and because I did it because I was incredibly depressed and manic, and I wasn't able to focus on my studies, and I was like, I feel like I'm going crazy. I'm depressed. I don't want to be here. And they're like, oh well, we realized we did an interview and your Ned was done entirely wrong, and none of your past lists are correct, and they're all dumb, and none of your items are real. And I'm like, what?
So Ian, let me ask you what you mean when you say they found out I went clear on the rundown. What does that mean to you?
So I did an interiorization rundown, and it was the full thing. I think I also
you don't have to define all the words necessarily, right? Because but I know people in the But I know people in the chat are going to go, hold on. I know people in the chat are going to go, but clear isn't a thing. And I doubt you believe that clear is still a thing. So with that in mind, what do you mean when you say they realized I went clear?
There's a prerequisite in Scientology of something you're supposed to say. And usually if you're just doing auditing, you get up to, let's say you get up to New Era Dianetics and you say the clear cognition. At that point, you then are sent to verify whether or not you obtain the state of clear. I apparently said, exactly what I needed to say. And then immediately after was like, I had to do a sec check, a security check. So for 3 months, I did the sec check, and I was like, I have to study. I can't keep doing the sec check. But they don't, because I was in an ethics situation, they wouldn't allow me to attest to this state of clear. So I was like, by their own metrics, I was supposed to be brought to this point, but because they looked down on me, they bent the rules and they just didn't allow. I mean, they showed me some bullshit policy that explained it away. I mean, the amount of things that they were able to get away with is crazy. But
so does that essentially mean they determined you had spit out the clear cognition during your int rundown? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And just for the people in the chat who are asking, the clear cognition is something like, oh, I just realized I've been creating my own reactive mind all along.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
Ta-da! You're clear. I just saved you $50,000.
Well, and the other thing too about your situation, Ian, is you mentioned about being in ethics trouble and, being a problem with them. And I'll just tell you, from going back to the ivory tower, like those are the heads of manipulation. So you were being manipulated, and they throw the carrot of clear. It's like, oh, you might be clear. So as you're in this depression, feeling out ethics, they might give you a little bit of hope. I mean, remember, they're using everything is to sell for them to manipulate you. And so I think they were using that as a carrot for you more than anything.
Yeah, in hindsight, I mean, now I've spent a lot of time researching coercive control and learning about cults and how and what makes a cult different than like a standard, you know, your standard, I guess, cut and dry religious definition. But you know, even in my mind, and even to go back to faith, I believed that after having been such a, you know, a horrible person and like a, you know, a degraded whatever, having been seen as so low for so long, I feel like I was so eager to accept clear as like amnesty or like a redemption of some kind. So like, you know, because if you're lower than everyone else in your family, it's you're lower than everyone else in your family. You're treated as lesser. You don't know, like they will literally, like, I mean, I was bullied all my childhood by my family, but like it wasn't until my brother went clear and my dad went clear and my mom was on her OT levels and that I was like, I was seeing like, okay, for some reason everyone's allowed to treat these people better. Like it's like exposure to these like minute things like change your outlook. Obviously, I still have my clear bracelet mainly because like it's the only thing I can't burn. I burned all my certs and I had a roll of them. I did like 37 courses or something when I was at Flag, but so that was really therapeutic, but I can't really burn that. And you know, some people think it's cool that I have like a little cult memorabilia, you know, the box they give it, it's way overpriced. But it didn't really change anything about me. It actually made me feel worse about my life, that clear isn't going to help you at all do anything. It's like a mental trap that they can put a cap on you and be like, all right, well, now you have to go OT or you're going to go insane and die and go crazy.
Well, and again, we go to the euphemisms, and you're getting high on euphemisms because the word clear means nothing. The word in run down means nothing. None of the things we describe mean anything. They're just being used to manipulate us when we're there. That's literally all the purpose of any of these words.
Yeah. All right. Kathy Ann says, I believe Doug says he's done the L's on a live airing. Love you all. Question: did you guys have a favorite post or one less awful than the others? And why? Now, you tricky trickster, you asked like 3 questions there, but we're going to do the best justice that we can. Guys, all my posts were pretty much the same. They were all tech posts. So, you know, I don't really have an answer to this question. Did any of you have a post that was less awful than the others?
Columbus, when I was the Dirt Public promo in Columbus, and that was actually pretty fun.
And what'd you do on that post?
I was in charge of public promotion, and so I and marketing for the org, and I ran ads, I sold books, I went and handed out promo, I did internet social media marketing, TV ads, like coordinated all that sort of thing, and that was kind of fun. And it was really therapeutic being out of management and out of LA was very therapeutic. So that was probably my favorite.
Yeah, it changed because when I was the SSO, the staff section officer, I was like, man, this is a lot of work. You don't really have an expectation for how much work it's going to be. But then when I came back from being at Flag, the auditing was so much easier and everything was like so much easier because you just were in like the most high pressure situation. You come back from Flag, nothing is going on. So
isn't that interesting? So like Catherine's at middle management and life sucks. They send her out to an org to just sort of live in the real world. And she's like, oh, wow, this is pretty good. You're at Flag. You're at Flag where everything's supposed to be great. You get back to your org and you're like, oh shit, Flag was shit compared to this.
Yeah. I mean, I was convinced that I was like coerced to come back early. I was going to do even more bridge, but I was coerced to come back by Sarah Teresi because she was on mission at the time.
She ended up in Columbus.
Yeah. And she ruined a lot. She did a lot of really bad things, but she brought me back early because she said there was like a mountain of PCs out the door or whatever. I did like two tiny little 1 hour repairs, and there was nobody else for like weeks. So I hated, it was easier to just be in session than to, because I was very socially, a lot of intense social anxiety. So like the call-in and letter writing for me was like mind-numbingly like grueling work. And it was like, so it just sucked the life right out of me. So if I was like finding every reason to be like, let me just go into an auditing room and lock the door and pretend that I'm doing folder work or something, you know?
There is nothing in Scientology I detested or hated more than being in an auditing session as either an auditor or a PC. There's nothing I hated more than being locked in that fucking room, knowing that either I couldn't get out of this session or knowing that as an auditor, I couldn't even take a break until this fucking person's needle floated. And, you know, you're halfway into a correction list and you're like, oh, nothing I hated more. I can't, it's shocking to me that was your place of solace. Was being stuck in an auditing session.
I could avoid all my seniors. I could avoid the ED who was always up my ass. I could avoid the ethics officers. I could avoid literally everyone. Even if I didn't have a PC, I'm like, I'm going to do some folder work and some FESing, and I would just literally go in and lock the door.
Well, folder work, I understand. I mean,
and then
locking yourself in the room, I understand.
I mean, I did the set because I was too fast. Like they were like, oh, you're going to do this, you know, this is going to be a long program. And then I just knock it out in the day. And then they want me to do letter writing. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do call in. I'm just going to stay in this room. I mean, I have my own quirks, but like, yeah.
Serge, you were also pretty much always on the same tech posts, right? But, you know, training, souping, sec checking, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hated anything where I had to handle public. I hated that. I hated calling. I hated selling books. I hated trying to get people, sell people. If I just handed them a piece of promo and walked away, I was happy.
Well, that's what's so horrible about this. I mean, there's like these like quasi corporate BS jobs, even though it's a supposed church, but everyone's on a corporate position. And then, you know, if you're on the technical side, you're like part of their S&M dungeon. It's like, what was a good post, honestly?
Yeah,
like,
and if you're in management, there's so many posts and so many little units that exist to make sure that other people are doing their job. Yeah. It's so ridiculous.
Catherine, this one's for you. Gail Carney asks, why didn't you leave with your mom and sister? Why did they leave and not you at that time?
Oh, they basically, I told this really long story in a couple other interviews, but they came to LA in 2007 to visit me. And I was thinking they were still in Scientology. I knew they were both off staff, but I was thinking they were still in Scientology and doing stuff because they just kind of didn't answer my questions about it, but didn't say they were out of it. And then they came to see me and kind of sprung things on me. And I was like, what's going on? What happened? No, I'm not going anywhere. No. Because for me, I was like, I'd already been in the Sea Org for so long. And that was what I was used to doing. I was, you know, I wouldn't say I was happy, but I was stable. I was like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. I'm helping mankind. What do you guys do? You're what? So it was too much of a shock. It was very abrupt. They didn't ease into it at all. I didn't have any time to think. It was like overnight. Like it was.
But you were the only one of those people who were in the Sea Org. They had left, but they were not in the Sea Org.
Yeah, they were never in the Sea Org. They were both on staff up in Portland, but they were never in the Sea Org.
Right. That makes sense. So then, yeah, I guess it's hard to tell the whole story without getting into all of it, right? Yeah, but then even when you yourself wanted to leave the Sea Org, you still had this distrust of your family who had left because you've been thinking about them as basically being criminals for so long. Am I overstating it?
I wasn't. No, you're not overstating it. I wasn't ready to talk to them when I first left. Like I left and then I went up to Minnesota. I saw extended family. I saw family I hadn't seen in like, 20, 25, 30 years. And then I emailed my mom, I texted my sister and just kind of eased into it. And then I did go and see my mom about a month later, which was good. And we're back together. So it's good now.
But it
was hard when I left. I was also like, I was so shocked, and I was just in shock when I left, because I was like, because you go from thinking that people like you, Aaron, and the Headleys and Mike, and anyone who speaks out is like this horrible, evil person who's trying to destroy Scientology, and Scientology is saving the world, to like finding out that you're like the most wonderful people. Like, I love you guys. Like, the Headleys are like some of my best friends now, and it's just a shock to find out that the world is not this scary, horrible, woggy place that has no tech and is just everyone's out ethics.
And I mean, Catherine, it all follows domestic violence relationship. You were being controlled by your domestic violence partner, separating you, whatever. It's like when you see the R. Kelly documentary, you see those girls, saying, "Oh yeah, R. Kelly's amazing. He's great. We're so happy here." And you see how all of those victims have been broken down with the same tactics. I mean, Scientology is no different than all human traffickers. And since you were being human trafficked since a child, I mean, how are you supposed to know? Like, they completely gaslit you beyond you even understanding who your mother is. I mean, that's how far these people took it.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the things that helped me to recognize what was happening, is the person I was talking to, my very good friend, who, by the way, I'm now engaged to.
Yay.
Hot dog.
Jared, I didn't tell you that yet.
That's okay.
Anyway, he compared it to human trafficking and to domestic abuse situations, but he never like attacked Scientology and said this is human trafficking and this is blah. He did it in such a way where I was like, where I thought about it myself, and I'm like, yeah, this is like domestic violence situation, this is trafficking, this is, anyway.
Yeah, it affects you. Yeah, it affects us all the same. I mean, in every situation, Scientology has a very profound way to wrap so many of them up into one box and deliver it right to you, all packaged into one. I mean, like, I was told that as a child, I was like, this is how you expand your ability to love. But I had, and I mean, Serge, to what you were saying, like, I had one of my best friends growing up, we spent so much time together. He came out to me and told me he was gay. And because I had all this stuff in my past, and my mom telling me all these things, and my dad like making jokes about him, and it scared me. I decided not to disconnect from him because he's my friend, and it like never changed our relationship. I like to think that I was the most logical person in my household, because like I didn't hold up to their kind of blind expectations. But like once you leave that bubble of Scientology, you really see like how much acceptance and love there is in the world for you, and that you can be a part of. And Scientology, and just how people use it for themselves. It's like, it's scary to think about leaving. But and also, like Serge, you said, I think about, that 10-year-old boy sitting on his bed, like having these insane thoughts. Like I thought I was adopted, or I was like an alien or something. I thought I was picked up off the street or something. Like, there's no way I could be in this situation. Like, kids I trick-or-treated with as a child were like spreading hate about me when I left. And like, it's just such a weird shift into this completely different thing than I thought. I mean, it is just it is control, it is manipulation. The more you feel it's a bad idea to leave, the more they win.
Well, and I would even go as far as saying, it's like, again, we are victims of organized crime. This is a racketeering enterprise. There was no good faith. There is no benefit of the doubt. Unfortunately, the policies of L. Ron Hubbard don't give anyone a shred of benefit of the doubt. That man wrote disgusting policies that all end up in the same place: dehumanize, abuse, and destroy everyone else, all for your own personal benefit. So, it's confusing because all of this stuff about religion and religion and religion, and you know what, this was a technology, and the technology is flawed, and the technology every time it's applied, it's actually abusing a human being and dehumanizing that human being, but that human being has to pretend that somehow the process of dehumanizing them down to the bone is beneficial and it's in their best interest. And that's where you're going to get the one thing about L. Ron Hubbard is his contract is not for anyone's best interest. Doesn't matter. You can be OT8 and think this is all in your best interest. Well, we're here to tell you it's not in your best interest to be someone's slave unless you get off on it and you're there. But then don't bring young kids into this, because for us, it wasn't in our best interest. For us, you adulticized us for your own entertainment, and that's sick. And it's time for all of you people that were doing this to wake up, because how is it going to change for kids that are stuck in the hotel right now? It ain't going to change. I mean, 10 years later, 73 years later, we're all here talking about these abuses, and none of them have been curtailed or slowed or changed at all, because they're all pretending that this is all very well within the confines of acting illegal, acting like a gang of child abusers. It's like, when are the lies gonna stop, really?
Yeah. There's that line of like where I still to this day, I mean, it frustrates, I'm sure it frustrates all of us, but like hearing like the fact that you can just lie enough and then people just can easily lose interest, or they can easily just glaze over it. They're not as interested in but stop lying. But like we literally like turn over the pages that they wrote and say, this is what you're lying about. I say, they act like it doesn't even exist. Like that arbitration thing when they sent Valerie Haney, is that her name? Mm-hmm. To do religious arbitration. It's like, I mean, I audibly gasped. I was like, I'm speechless. That doesn't exist. There is no, you literally handed a bunny to a pack of starving wolves and said, you'll figure this out. You'll do this. Like literally, I mean, it drives me crazy sometimes, but I mean, it's been driving me crazy my whole life. It kind of flattens pretty quick.
I mean, but to your point on that that's the attorneys. That's the crooked, lawless attorneys that Scientology's got on retainer doing crooked work, defending L. Ron Hubbard's rhetoric. I mean, what kind of attorney, what kind of dumb idiot attorney, zero due diligence attorney do you have to be to not ever have picked up a book, to not ever have done a course, and to not know where all these children were going to end up? Because all these attorneys like to pretend that because our parents consented to us being abused ad nauseum without boundaries, and that was supposedly in our own best interest, it wasn't. And, I made the case the other day about, if your parent brings you to a motel to get sex trafficked, guess what? They're a co-conspirator to a felony. They're not your parent. They're not this. They're not that. They're just that. They're operating as a felon. And L. Ron Hubbard lured them to get to that behavior. And then they all lost, they were drunk on their own power. And then they went completely rogue and joined this hotel operation that is disgusting. Because again, how many minors were at Flag when you were there, Ian?
Oh, even in the motels, I'd say like about a dozen. And unsupervised, like we were looking out for each other. I mean, we had people who were looking out for them. I mean,
well, and that was just a dozen out-of-work trainees, right? That wasn't even all
just there. I mean, there are kids running around at Flag in the atrium. There were kids on course. I mean, there's
teenagers.
Yeah.
How many teenagers are running around the Fort Harrison? So many.
Oh, so many, but not even counting. I didn't even count the Sea Org members, which there are many young. I mean, there was a time when my auditor was busy, and there was a trainee who was like 15 years old, and she had to sec check me. And I mean, at this point, I was just, I was going through the motions. I just got it out there. But like in hindsight, like she should never have been in that room. We should never have had that conversation. Like that's not her job. It should not be someone's job like that. And I mean, what was I going to say? Like, I think about that a lot, and like how if you think that your tech is going to cure pedophilia in some way. And like, how does that reduce in your mind? I'm speaking more like in the mindset of my parents or someone who's more narcissistically in the group, who has this full faith and who believes that the tech is just going to figure everything out eventually. Like, how can you justify that abuse will occur and it's better to not only ignore the abuse, but to hide it? Because a Scientologist in prison is worse
That's
than
right.
a child receiving psychological care for the trauma that they have endured under an abuser. And it's like, it's just so, I mean, the word critical is so redefined that you don't really get to the critical thinking aspect of like psychology or even how to like break down if it's a cult and what is a cult, because critical is like a bad word. Critical is a red word. You can't dive into that. I think even my dad, who pretends to be an academic, literally just goes off of his own confirmation bias, so he doesn't have to think critically. And he's debunked quite often for his very incorrect assumptions about medicine, about people, about how he makes a lot of guarantees, but it's just a symptom of this like broader, put off. Like, it doesn't have to be correct because it's true, or some kind of
Well,
I'm losing
going back to the euphemisms, right? It's like, as long as
Right.
those definitions mean something to you, your brain cannot critically think, right? Because
Right.
you're thinking auditing session, auditor, PC, like those are words that your brain is utilizing to filter what's being said to you. And just to your point about how can you think that something as horrible as raping a child can be cleared through technology? Well, because that was the deal here, Ian. And unfortunately, these audits are more like illegal depositions where people go and self-incriminate. That's what the
Right.
process is and what it constitutes. And I told Aaron it doesn't even fit the definition of confession, because confession is you come tell me what you want to tell me. And here we were having a canned list of Class A felonies we were searching for, and God forbid we didn't get them to admit. I'm not saying that every single person had a Class A felony record,
Sure.
but there were plenty of people that had, and then they were promised this transactional deposition in a hotel where they float a needle, and all of a sudden the full admission of a Class A felony became transactional. Oh, it floated. Oh, it blew. Oh, it got handled. Oh, it was an OW. And again, it's like all of that technology skews the perception of what actually is going on. The more you see
Right.
the words are just the red herring for everything, because as long as you talk about the words, you're not talking about reality. You're talking about, you're still in the L. Ron Hubbard universe, giving him the benefit of the doubt that any of these things meant anything, because nothing meant anything. That's what's so sick about this. And, I saw a comment, how do you find out that OTA is a lie, and how do you wake up from all of this? It's like, well, as you know, Ian, like, and Catherine, when you find out that everything's a lie, it's earth shattering. It's like, that's when, we didn't feel a lot when we were being scammed, but afterwards it's like, holy moly.
Every moment, every single moment that like everything happened, they just come to you. Sometimes in flashes. I mean, and it's in the dreams that you have after. And like, I've had nightmares of like being in flag, and like, it's very hard to explain, but it lowers, I mean, the average empathy that you have to succeed as a Scientologist is extremely low. So it goes part and parcel with all that. But you're
lured
absolutely
to
right.
become a psychopath, and you're lured to becoming L. Ron Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard was a clown psychopath, unhinged, crazy as hell. And going back to the point of the attorneys that didn't do a shred of due diligence, is like, good luck defending what L. Ron Hubbard wrote, because, all of us in this panel have studied that man. We did our due diligence, and that's why we're coming here and talking about with the receipts of what the hell's wrong that you're doing in those hotels, because apparently these attorneys are completely unaware of what goes on, like have no clue and don't care.
They don't.
or they know everything and they still don't care. But either way, it's not an excuse, because they either did zero due diligence on a client, they've collected millions and millions of dollars of retainer, or they literally are in on it as well. They've been pulling the strings and, advising David, well, you know what, send that kid to South Africa. That way, if there's a problem with the statute of limitations, there's going to be no problem. And don't you have another org over there? I mean, it's just a worldwide network of trafficking minors that they're abusing. And when things get bad, they can just ship another minor to another place. And I mean, Catherine, middle management is all involved. Oh, let me see the report. Who's been a problem? What's going on? What's flapping? What's being a problem? Like, they all know it's the problem. It's like,
it's so easy to move people around and send them out of the country and they just disappear them. So, they're not here anymore.
Yeah, I have a handful of people who I knew before Africa opened. They were training them. I was around those guys at Flag, and they didn't have enough people. Nobody really joined Africa except for like 2 or 3 people. So they just kind of pulled from different places. A few of those people were underage. So they just were like, well, this is my life now. And they read like 2 or 3 books and then get on a plane and spend the next X years separated from their family in Africa, in a completely different country.
Yeah.
All right. Next one's for you. Ian, what level do you need to reach on the bridge in order to be eligible for the superpower course? It is not a course. It is an auditing action. Can you describe the process and the length? I do not want to get into a 5-minute answer about superpowers. So let's just give the basic data.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like, if you ever see the videos.
Hold on. What level do you need to be out on the bridge to be eligible for superpower?
Survival rundown.
Yeah, that's right. Like, you can do it low.
You do SRD, you're done. You can spend however many tens of thousands of dollars at Flag to do that.
To do what?
Superpower.
Oh, superpower. Yeah. Okay.
As long as you've done the purification rundown, which is the sweating, and then the survival rundown, which is you audit with somebody else. God knows how long. Then
the truth is, it's funny that you don't hear of more former Scientologists who've done superpower, because the truth is the qualifications to do it are quite low, and it's been the main thing anyone in Clearwater has been supposed to do for the last 10 years.
It's kind of like a business marketing thing, because I noticed a lot of people, like a lot of Russian businessmen, their wives, a lot of people who are connected in these kind of Scientology communities tend to do it as like an uplifting, like, this will give you a boost and this will really help you succeed. And because they have all the perceptics drills or whatever.
Well, and you just brought up Russian business, okay?
But hold on. Let him finish this though.
I mean, don't get me started on the Russians, but like the whole area is very alluring, and you have all this, like, even the CCR cause resurgence rundown space. So there's all very secret places that you're not allowed to go. When you see them, you're like, this must be doing something. They wouldn't just put all this stuff up here for nothing. So I think there's an overlap there with
but they don't get to see that shit until they're on it, right? I mean,
they have tours every now and then. They allow you to tour the top level. Yeah, it's completely
They allow you to tour the Perceptics area?
Yeah.
Wow.
They show that in videos too.
Doing superpower must just be like, it's become like the ultimate Scientology clout chasing.
Yeah.
It's so fucking stupid. But nobody really knows what it is.
They wear the outfit, the uniform. They wear those jackets. Like, if you see someone in those jackets, you're like, oh, wow. Or you get this massive pin, this incredibly large, huge silver pin with a whoosh. And it's like, they wear it on their lapels. Like, the amount of pins, if you actually want to go military about it and wear all the pins that you earn, it's obnoxious. The amount of pins that they think, like, the pin culture. I don't know. They just have pins for everything. So some people just wear all of their pins on the side of their uniform. The superpower one is just like, it's way too cumbersome. It's
That's right. Even the Sea Org 25th anniversary ring. Like, once you went on Sea Org for 25 years, you used to get a ring. Now it's a pin.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they got some obsession with all that.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
I'm curious if you guys have any inside track on this next one. Rue says, curious if anyone knows if Greta Van Susteren's sister was ever in. I believe Greta's sister is now a psychologist. How does Greta get away with all this shit? I'm a news junkie, and I always loved Greta. Was a bit surprised that she was in Scientology. I didn't know Greta had a sister. Do you guys know anything about this?
No.
No. There's
Actually,
No, but again, Greta is an anomaly because why was she in the news? Why was she a lawyer? Why is her husband such a great lawyer? How are they funding so much child trafficking themselves? Because again, everyone pretends that, these people that are donating the millions of dollars are not actual funders of child trafficking.
Right.
Greta Van Susteren is a child trafficking funder. That woman in the news that you see, and she looks all cute put together. She's not that cute and put together, let me tell you. L. Ron Hubbard has had his way with that woman.
Yeah, and for some reason, just to dip my toe into this pond real quick, for some reason, even though Megyn Kelly knows all about Scientology, even though she's a friend of Mike Rinder's, even though she's done a lot of Scientology exposure, she knows damn well that Grant Cardone is one of the biggest funders of Scientology, and she started to promote Grant Cardone. She's
Crazy.
speaking at Elena Cardone's event, and I'm gonna have to do a video about Megyn Kelly. Now, that's a problem because I don't like touching anything even remotely political or politically adjacent because it's so toxic to do that. My channel wasn't built on politics, but I'm gonna have to do a video about Megyn Kelly because now she knows that Grant Cardone is a Scientology promoter and she's promoting Grant Cardone.
And you know what? All she has to do, Aaron, is go watch the video of Grant Cardone's daughter so that everyone understands what a child adulticized look like and sounds like. Because
Yeah.
a Grant Cardone's daughter is the poster child of the adulticization process that these Scientology people do.
Oh, it's insane. The way he dressed his daughter up in full-blown adult dress and makeup at 10 years old and had her speak in front of 15,000 people. It was so disgusting. You could tell he was proud of her. I'm like, no, that's disgusting. You
But
just
that's
put
what it was. I mean,
it's so disgusting.
That's how we were, as all of us as kids,
Yeah.
that's what we were doing.
Yep. Okay, April Taylor, is Ian's dad the keto doctor? Yes, indeed. The one and the same. The one and the same.
Sir,
everybody in Columbus was obsessed with keto, by the way.
Yeah,
All the
it's
start
like
numbers.
he's basically like
God.
instead of going to doctors or like the medical industry, he's kind of become this sort of like health icon. This is health LRH. I kind of like he's comparable in like he's an OT8 and he has all this knowledge, so I can blindly just believe everything he says, just like it's a very comparable thing.
Yeah.
He
Guys,
practiced medicine without a license, literally. Like that's medicine without a license.
The single largest source of shit I get on my channel is comments on the videos we have done about your dad.
Yeah.
People defending him.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how like the ultimate expert you can be on medicine in Scientology is to be a chiropractor. Now, even saying that, I'm gonna get so much shit. Oh, chiropractors have more training than medical doctors. Guys, I don't know if that's true, but I don't believe it. I'm sorry.
It's not even about like them being chiropractors and not even about chiropractic at all. It's just like a trend of like alternative medicine doctors who also, on top of that, are like into really weird beliefs, or they have really scammy things. Like I even back when I worked for him, I would tell my dad, I'm like, wow, we're like one step away from a pyramid scheme. I'm glad you don't add this one step, because that would be like illegal. It's crazy. I mean, so this works. I was very deluded, very uneducated about the whole thing, but he is not he's not a very smart guy. He had to, for most of my childhood, he had to call me on the phone or call me into the room just to find out how to turn on a TV every single time. He did not retain this information. This man is deep in the lead paint era.
For any of you newcomers, you missed the amazing story in one of our earlier chats where Ian explained that his father explained to him that earlier on the whole track, which is Scientology's word for everything before this lifetime, Dr. Berg believes that he was one of the big beings involved in determining how the human body would evolve over time. And that's how he's able to be an expert in the functions of the various organs, because he helped design the human body. That's Dr. Eric Berg for you.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have really said it better myself. Just the kind of small things that he says, and there's been a lot of just really traumatic and problematic things with him, but that's obviously for a different video. I was thinking when you Serge, when you started talking about Russian people, the what came to mind was when I was training, there was like this big problem with Russia and Scientology, and I think they raided the org. And to keep the ED and his wife on track, they flew them to Flag and put them up in the hotel for like a year.
Yeah.
And they had a baby there, so the baby was a U.S. citizen, so like they could just say bye Russia, and the whole like they weren't there, they were in there, they were like refugees from the law or something the whole time. I mean, I'm not really going to say much about what's good and bad about Russia, but like Scientology is bad for every country, and Russia is a very paranoid kind of. They have a lot of paranoid, people in government, so.
But a lot of those businessmen, Ian, what they were really after in Scientology is laundering the money, because Scientology was very instrumental in laundering money out of Russia.
Yeah.
Okay? They are, they can donate, like Charmaine Roger, their superpower big star register, would go to Russia and come back with $10 million. But all of these would be going to offshore accounts and all kinds of ways. So Scientology is operating as a shadow money laundering operation there in Russia, and Putin even hasn't gotten to Scientology really. I mean, because they are been sort of chased out, but there's still some presence, because again, nobody understands really what they're up to. Like, they don't.
And also there's something called payments to Flag that the orgs do, and it came up as a real situation. Whatever, somehow some government agency or whatever looked into the fact that the Russian orgs were sending all this money to the United States, to Denmark. They're like, why are you sending so much money out of Russia to these different places? Like, what the hell?
Yeah,
just a lot of big donors.
Actually,
a lot of good fundraising.
All right, this next one's for Serge. Serge, you seem to have been thinking about all of this for a long time. Did you come to realizations when you were in, or most of it after you got out? You're helpful for Ian and Catherine and others.
Definitely.
I've been out since 8 years, and the beginning of my awakening started in my art show with these photographs that kind of showed me what I had been involved in. And then later on, once I actually did leave Scientology, I spent a lot of time decompartmentalizing everything, going to therapy, and doing a lot of inner work. And then I mostly work behind the scenes. I've talked to mainstream media. I thought they were the ones that should be doing this job that we're doing right now for them. It shouldn't be up to us to come and clean up this mess, but it is up to us. And for a long time, I just stayed behind the scenes thinking that mainstream media was going to actually do something effective to stop the child trafficking. And, having some conversations with Aaron, he, invited me to come forward and to do this job here with you guys, with Ian and Catherine and everybody, because, nobody's going to advocate for us and nobody's going to advocate for those kids. And the mainstream media could not be more clueless. I mean, Aaron, you just did the People magazine puff piece on Shelley, and it's a disgrace that where's the editor of the crime section of People magazine? And it's like the mainstream media has been playing this BS game where they're like, oh yeah, we can't cover the children's stuff because we got to be very precise or we get in trouble and we get sued. But there they are putting some, piece that is so badly written about Shelley Miscavige. So once again, the media's been monetizing and commoditizing all of the abuse of the trauma victims, and they have done zero effective things to stop the abuses in those hotels. They could not be more clueless. So now it's up to us. So yeah, we thought about it a lot, and again, it's just like we're being the change we want to see. We're making the points I wish somebody would have been making for me while we were stuck there, unable to leave, we don't know.
Instead of working out all of these like subtle, nuanced like things, we've been through exactly that, and we could map like, okay, you're going to start feeling like this, and once you realize that it's wrong, you're going to feel this way, you're going to feel really dumb, but don't, it's not your fault. Like we know, like we can be a bridge. I don't think it's any one of us that's going to actually take the lead, but definitely there are more and more people coming out all the time. And that is already like an indication that like people are getting the idea. People reach out to me all the time in confidence and they say like, I never thought of it like that, or you opened my eyes to this. And I don't even know how to feel about it because Scientology is still out there doing these things. And these people are still like, well, I'd love to say I'd, talk with you on your podcast, but I'm afraid for my family and I can't talk about it. All the things, all the abuse that happened because I still want to talk to my, my family, or I still want to have a connection with this person. And like, it just hijacks like normal human connections and makes them like, it holds them hostage, and you never really know how you're going to feel about it. People feel differently, but you're effective. You're left.
Part of being effective is, again, focusing on what matters and what needs to change. And frankly, there's no excuse for children being in Scientology. If you're 21 and over, we don't have to care. Like, you like it rough, you like it L. Ron Hubbard, you want to do this, you want to do that. It's like, it's none of our concern. Seriously, like 21 and under, it is our concern, because you know what? We know how it goes for them there. And we know what these people do. And we know that they have zero advocates there, zero advocates outside, because everyone's pretending that unindicted runaway felon L. Ron Hubbard is somebody that should be just given the full benefit of the doubt. And the angelical L. Ron Hubbard is some sort of religious figure. It's going back to those attorneys that completely botched this, that wrote all this bad paperwork. And here we are picking up the pieces now.
Yeah. Well, all right, everyone. It is 9 o'clock. That's usually where we cut it off. And I know there is an after show that they do. I don't want to step on their toes. So, you mentioned that money laundering. When people mention money laundering, I've always been quick to go, to launder money, it has to be dirty in the first place. And Scientology's money is by definition clean because it's being donated. But as you said that, it did occur to me, you could have the dirtiest money imaginable, let's just say over in Russia, and you donate it to your local Church of Scientology. That money gets sent, like you said, payments to flag. Sometimes that's flag based, sometimes that's flag management, either one. Yeah. And all of a sudden, you've got dirty money that's clean.
Talk to Jeffrey Augustine, because he's covered even more in depth about the Russian scene. He's got more information about that. So,
yeah. And let's say, how would they even... Okay, I'm going to have to talk to Jeff about that, because... And the same thing in Mexico. You could take a bunch of dirty money, donate it to buy 1,000 hours of auditing at your local Church of Scientology. That money gets sent up lines, payments to flag management, flag land base. Bada bing. Well, you got a lot of clean money across country lines.
It's even worse, Aaron, because, like, for example, I knew of people from Venezuela. Back in the 90s, there was a big problem in Venezuela. People were trying to get the money out. So that is how they would do it. They would give it to Scientology, then it would get sent to an offshore account. And then they would come to flag, and then they would be given the money. Like, they knew this wasn't a full donation to Scientology, but they were sort of like brokering the money in the meantime, because they had the means to extract it. I mean, the banking system has been, helping Scientology, doing their dirty laundry work all over. And I mean, we know how much child trafficking takes in order to fund all these things. Just look at Jeffrey Epstein. JP Morgan Sachs, Deutsche Bank, all these banks are corrupt and disgusting. And, we're going to start finding who these people are that are funding L. Ron Hubbard and all of this stuff, because that is where the crimes are.
Okay, great. So remember, everybody, subscribe to Serge Del Mar on YouTube at Serge Del Mar or at Serge Del Mar. And you can subscribe to Ian Rafalco on YouTube at Ian Rafalco or at Rafalco_. Hey, Catherine, how come you don't have a channel yet, huh?
I just jump around on everyone else's channels.
I know. How come you don't have your own yet, huh?
I don't know. I'll think about it.
Is that too much to confront, Catherine? What's going on?
I'll think about it. I have something else I'm working on that I'll announce.
Oh, something else? Yeah. But not a channel. Okay, we'll see. All right, everyone. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Thank you, everyone who watches until the very end, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Okay. If you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, oh, Yankee for my love, then you could click right inside here.